On the 1st of December 1948, a man was found dead on Somerton Park Beach in suburban Adelaide, Australia. He was lying against the seawall, legs crossed, propped up as though he had simply sat down to watch the sea and fallen asleep. He was well dressed. He had no identification, no wallet, no labels in his clothes. His face was composed. There were no signs of a struggle. The pathologist who examined him would later say that the man's body showed no visible cause of death. He was simply found, and then the questions began. This is the story of the Somerton man. Almost 80 years have passed, and we still do not know who this man was. We do not know where he came from, what he was doing on that beach, or how he died. A cipher was found in his pocket, a code that has never been broken, and the single line of text that survives from his belongings, written in Persian, translates to, "It is finished." What makes the Somerton man case unsettling is not just the absence of answers. It is that every detail discovered, every clue, every witness, every document seems to raise more questions than it resolves. It is a case that was designed, it seems, to resist conclusion. The morning of 1 December 1948 was unremarkable. Adelaide's summer was beginning its slow climb toward heat. At around 6:30 a.m., a couple walking along Somerton Beach noticed a man lying motionless against the seawall. At first they assumed he was asleep. Another man approached and tried to wake him. Then a nurse arrived from the nearby life-saving club. She touched his face and felt the cold. The man had been dead for several hours. Police arrived and searched the body. They found a train ticket from Adelaide to Somerton Park purchased that morning, a bus ticket from the city centre, a pack of gum, a metal comb, a packet of cigarettes. All of these items were of common, unremarkable brands. None of them led anywhere. The labels on his clothing had been removed, not carelessly but deliberately, as though by someone who knew exactly how to make a garment untraceable. His shoes had been resoled with a type of rubber not manufactured in Australia. His suit was American in style, but the stitching suggested it had been made elsewhere. Every clue pointed away from any identifiable origin. The autopsy was performed on 2 December by Dr. John Dwyer, who noted something unusual. The man's spleen was grossly enlarged, roughly 3 times the normal size. His liver was congested. His stomach contained what appeared to be a recent meal, but no residue of any known poison. The pathologist concluded that death was most likely caused by poisoning, but the specific agent could not be identified. He suggested a poison that left no trace, digitalis perhaps, or an alkaloid compound that would degrade before it could be detected. 2 months later, in January 1949, police discovered that a suitcase had been checked at the Adelaide railway station on the night of 30th November 1948. The tag bore a name, T. Keane, but the handwriting and a stenciling kit found inside the suitcase suggested that the name had been applied by the man himself as a cover. Inside the suitcase were more clothes, all with their labels removed, and a roll of thread, nothing marked or personalized. The man had crossed into the city, checked his bag, and taken the tram to the beach. He had sat down against a wall and died, and in the months that followed, as police chased every lead into dead ends, it began to appear as though the man had planned to be unknowable, not merely by accident, but by design. It was July 1949, 7 months after the body was found, when a police constable, conducting a final review of the evidence, noticed something inside the man's trousers. Sewn into the waistband was a small, hidden fob pocket, the kind of pocket used to carry a pocket watch, and inside that pocket, rolled into a tight cylinder, was a scrap of paper. The paper bore 2 words, Tamam Shud. Tamam Shud is Persian. It means it is over or it is finished. The phrase comes from the closing stanza of Edward Fitzgerald's translation of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, a collection of Persian quatrains about fate, mortality, and the fleeting nature of life. The paper had been torn from a specific edition, the first edition of Fitzgerald's second translation, published in 1868. Police launched a nationwide search for the book, and they found it because someone had left it in the back seat of a parked car in the suburb of Glenelg, a few miles from Somerton Beach, on the night the man died. A man came forward and said that on the night of 30th of November, he had parked his car near the beach. When he returned the following morning, the book was on the back seat. He had never seen it before. He handed it to police. Inside the back cover of the book, someone had written a cipher, 5 lines of capital letters, roughly 44 characters in total. The sequence of letters has never been deciphered. The book also contained a local telephone number. Police traced it to a woman in her late 20s, a nurse named Joy, who had worked at the Royal Adelaide Hospital during the war. When shown a plaster bust of the dead man, she recoiled. She said she did not recognize him, but her phone number was in the book, and the book, she later admitted, had belonged to a man she met during the war, an Australian soldier named Alf Boxall, with whom she had shared a copy of the Rubaiyat. Police tracked down Alf Boxall. He was alive, he had never gone missing, and the copy of the Rubaiyat police had found, the one with the cipher in it, was not his. It was a different edition entirely. Joy told police she did not know the dead man, but she kept the plaster cast of his face in her home for the rest of her life. The cipher remains one of the great unsolved codes of the 20th century. Intelligence agencies have examined it, cryptographers have tried. The Australian Federal Police sent it to MI5 and the CIA. No one has produced a credible decryption. The code does not match any known cipher system. It may be unbreakable by design, a one-time pad used once and then discarded, or it may be nonsense, a random string intended to look meaningful. But if it is nonsense, it has arguably caused more damage than any real secret ever could, because it has kept the door open to every possible interpretation for decades. The Somerton man was buried in Adelaide's West Terrace Cemetery. The headstone reads, "Here lies the unknown man." For over 70 years, that line held. In the decades since, the case has become a fixture of unsolved mystery culture. It has been linked to Cold War espionage, to Soviet intelligence operations, to the disposal of a compromised agent by poison. The lack of evidence has not discouraged speculation, it has encouraged it. In 2021, the body was exhumed. A team of researchers led by Professor Derek Abbott at the University of Adelaide extracted DNA and undertook a genealogical investigation. In 2022, they announced a candidate, a man named Carl Charles Webb, an electrical engineer from Melbourne who had disappeared in the late 1940s. Webb's family, they claimed, matched the genetic profile. He was a manufacturer of measuring instruments. He was known to have had a difficult relationship with his wife. He had left Melbourne and never returned. But the identification has not been formally accepted by the South Australian government. The forensic evidence is contested, and the cipher, the code that has taunted cryptographers for generations, has not been broken by the revelation. If the Somerton man was Carl Webb, then who wrote the cipher and why? The case remains officially unsolved. What makes the Somerton man case so durable is not the violence of the death, there was none, or the intricacy of the conspiracy, because we cannot even confirm there was one. What makes it endure is the silence at its center. A man sat down on a beach, died, and left behind nothing that could explain why. There is a line from the Rubaiyat that the detective who worked the case, Detective Lean, often quoted to journalists. The moving finger writes and, having writ, moves on. It suggests that once events are inscribed, they are permanent. We can interpret them, we cannot change them. But the Somerton man's story is the opposite of that. The moving finger wrote, and then someone erased it, and the only trace left behind is a code that no one can read, and 2 words that say, "It is finished." It is not a conclusion, it is a statement of intent, and we still do not know who intended it.